Good morning, Kansas City.
A massive mothership hanging in the sky while human beings look tiny beneath it. A bike flying across the moon. A dinosaur turning imagination into reality in a single stunned expression. Even when Spielberg moves into fear, sadness, or existential loneliness, that upward pull never really disappears. He knows how to make the impossible feel gigantic. He knows how to make us look up. And with Disclosure Day, he does it again, but this time with a little more anxiety, a little more cynicism, and a lot more urgency. The result is another great Spielberg film, and honestly, one of the easiest movies to get swept up in this summer. Disclosure Day moves like a thriller, but it never forgets that it is still a Spielberg science fiction story at heart. That means the film is not just interested in momentum. It is interested in wonder, dread, discovery, and what happens when ordinary people are forced to stand too close to something that completely rewrites their understanding of reality. What makes this movie hit harder than a lot of modern sci-fi is that it trusts mystery again. It does not spoon-feed the audience. It throws us into the middle of something already in motion and expects us to catch up. And instead of that feeling frustrating, it becomes the engine of the whole experience. That choice is one of the smartest things Spielberg and David Koepp do here. Disclosure Day does not waste time with a neat, overly explanatory setup. It drops us right into a theft involving highly classified material, and from there the film slowly lets us piece together who these people are, what happened to them, and why the stakes are so high. I really like that approach because it turns the audience into active participants instead of passive observers. We are not just watching a mystery unfold. We are chasing it. We are trying to understand the same reality the characters are struggling to understand. That structure creates a real hunger inside the movie. It mirrors the need to know that defines all great alien conspiracy storytelling, but it also feels personal here. Like Spielberg is using the shape of the film itself to make us feel the same obsession that pushes these characters forward. And because of that, I do not even want to oversell plot details. Part of the fun is learning how these characters fit together. But at the center of the film is Daniel Kellner, played by Josh O'Connor, a cybersecurity expert working for the secretive Wardex Corporation who steals its classified archive and sets everything in motion. Colman Domingo plays Hugo, one of Daniel's key connections and another man trying to get out from under Wardex before it destroys him. Hewson plays Jane, Daniel's girlfriend, who gets pulled into danger whether she wants any part of this nightmare or not. These are the people carrying the conspiracy thriller machinery of the story, and they do it beautifully. O'Connor in particular has that rare quality where he feels both intelligent and emotionally exposed at the same time. He is easy to follow, easy to invest in, and exactly the kind of actor you want in a film built around secrets, conviction, and panic. But then there is Emily Blunt. And what Emily Blunt is doing here is on another level entirely. She plays Margaret Fairchild, a Kansas City television meteorologist trying to get her life together and push it towards something bigger. She wants more from her career, more from her future, more from herself. Then one morning, something shifts. A cardinal flies through her window, lands nearby, and from that point on her life begins tilting into territory she cannot explain. Soon she is delivering one of the most unforgettable moments in the film, and one of the moments the marketing has already hinted at when she starts making strange, clicking sounds live on air as if something beyond her own control is reaching through her. That sequence alone is incredible, but it works because Blunt makes Margaret feel grounded long before the impossible starts happening. She gives her texture, stress, yearning, impatience, and vulnerability. So when the film pushes her into something supernatural and destabilizing, it never feels like a gimmick. It feels like a person cracking open in front of us. That is what makes her performance so special. Blunt has the hardest job in the movie because she has to carry both the emotional realism of the story and some of its strangest material, and she absolutely crushes both sides. She is not just reacting to big sci-fi ideas. She is translating them into something intimate, painful, and human. Every scene with her feels alive. Every shift in her expression matters. Every time the movie cuts back to Margaret, it gets stronger. Josh O'Connor, Colman Domingo, and Hewson are all excellent, and they give the film its warmth and urgency. But Blunt is the one who turns Disclosure Day from a very good sci-fi thriller into something that actually lingers on the other side of the story. Colin Firth gives the movie a completely different energy, as Wardex had no Scanlan. He plays power as something deeply contained and deeply poisonous. There is almost no wasted movement in what he does. He wears authority like a calm surface over a reservoir of resentment and fear, and that makes him the perfect antagonist for this kind of story. Scanlan is not just a bad man guarding information. He is the human form of suppression itself. He represents what happens when institutions decide the truth is too dangerous for ordinary people, and Firth plays that with a cold restraint that makes every flicker of emotion feel revealing. For an actor who so often comes across as sympathetic, there is something especially effective about seeing him weaponize politeness this way. What I also really admired is how unapologetically old school the film feels. Yes, Disclosure Day draws from modern fears. You can feel echoes of surveillance culture, institutional mistrust, public fragmentation, and that constant background sensation that the world is cracking apart faster than people can emotionally process it. But Spielberg approaches all of that with a very traditional storytelling heart. He is still interested in alien contact as something spiritually disruptive. He is still interested in public truth as something that could fundamentally alter the emotional temperature of the world. And maybe most strikingly, he still believes people might actually care. That sincerity is either going to be the film's secret weapon or the thing that some viewers resist. For me, it is the secret weapon, because Disclosure Day is not trying to flatter our cynicism. It is trying to cut through it. Spielberg is looking at a bitter, fractured moment and responding with a film about empathy, shared reality, and the possibility that something larger than ourselves might force us to reconnect. There is a risk in that. A lesser filmmaker would make it feel corny. Spielberg makes it feel vulnerable. Even John Williams' score, while still beautiful, feels a little more restrained than some of Spielberg's most soaring collaborations, as if the film itself is afraid that the hope it is reaching for could be rejected. That tension gives the movie a fascinating emotional texture. It wants to believe, it needs to believe, but it understands how hard belief has become. That is why the ending works as well as it does, if you let yourself get on the film's wavelength. The final act becomes both thrilling and genuinely moving. It lands not just as a reveal, but as an emotional argument. Spielberg is not simply asking what disclosure would mean in a plot sense. He is asking what it would mean to us as people.